Senator, we're live.
Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. Put my glasses on. Heather, welcome. So we're, as you know, we're dealing with 703, which I assume you have an interest in. If you can introduce yourself and direct us to the sections that you'd like to talk to us about, we'd be happy to hear what you have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm Heather Lovejoy. I'm the program director of the Innovation Hub at Middlebury College. So I believe that last month when I provided testimony before the House Committee, part of why I was invited was to provide some perspective from an independent college on the ways that we're focusing on workforce development. So I didn't come today to speak about specific sections or line items, but to show the way that we are ready to roll up our sleeves and partner and support different aspects of this bill and other initiatives that are in the state. In the House Committee, we were paired up with VTC and the Vermont State Colleges. And so I'm bringing a pretty different perspective on some of the models and the work that we're doing, rather than talking about specific arenas of the bill. So I hope that this is helpful, and I'm happy to field any questions. When we did this last month, my colleague, the executive director of our Center for Careers and Internships, was joining me on the call. She shared some stats with me. She couldn't join today. So I'm happy to share some of that material as well. If this is not totally useful in terms of how you're wrapping your work around this, I am also happy to pause or be interrupted. So you all just let me know if that sounds like a good game plan.
So yeah, thank you for that. So you're saying that there's nothing specific in the bill that you want to address, but you want to share with us some ideas at your independent college level of what you're doing for internships and workforce development?
I certainly think there are some interesting aspects of the bill, not having read the entire thing, around the word that I don't like to use with our college students is retention, but thinking about the amount of out-of-state students that come to specifically Middlebury College, but also to the other higher ed institutions in the state, thinking about attracting them and exposing them to the benefits and the opportunities that are here. And so there were some things that I read about, incentivizing students post-grad to stick around that I think I would certainly be interested in discussing more. But we're not, trying to plug into some of the funding streams that are really designated towards other more specific programs.
So given that we have the benefit of having you, I think we'd be interested in specifically on that retention issue, what Middlebury College is doing, and we'll put that in our brains and think about it as we go forward.
That would be great. I think, the way that we prepared for the last session was a lot more to share out our models. And one of the benefits of that meeting is that we were able to connect with some other colleagues at independent schools to say, we would love to share these models and brainstorm with you. And that's one of the things that I provided in my testimony too. So why don't I share what I wrote about the perspective from the Innovation Hub, and I can share some statistics from our Center for Careers and Internships. And I'm happy to share feedback or thoughts on questions that I'm able to answer, but also can always follow up after the fact.
Sounds good. We do have a limited time and a few more witnesses, so if we could
Of course.
For 10 minutes, that would be great. Okay.
Great. For the last 10 years, the Middlebury College Innovation Hub has been working to build out programming that connects students to the world of work in Vermont. We find our community and partners to be exceptionally generous with their time and insights into their pathways, failures, networks, and training. Students crave this community connection, and one of our most popular programs has been our Vermont Ventures trips, where we pair startups and companies by industry and geographic location and bring students on field trips to meet founders and employees, tour facilities, and ask questions. Working with liberal arts undergraduate students, this exposure is essential to offering a realistic view of how people navigate career and work choices, and also opens their eyes to opportunities in Vermont. The majority of students that I work with do not have an idea for their own company or startup. And so this type of programming has been incredibly effective in allowing students to understand their potential to contribute to a broader innovation ecosystem. The opportunities available for startups in Vermont are incredible and growing. On the student entrepreneurship front, our partnerships with Vermont Center for Emerging Technologies, the Small Business Development Center, and Generator Makerspace have proven essential to support students. These partners have offered space, mentorship, and programming to students as they work to start and scale their companies. We are lucky to have so many resources in Vermont for these students and have been working to streamline the process of encouraging our young alumni to consider locating their companies in Vermont and showing them what that support looks like. For example, I recently visited a wood shop in Middlebury. 3 of our 2021 graduates chose Vermont to build their undergraduate company, Treeline Terrains, full-time, and they're now employing their first paid college intern this spring semester. We are using college funds that support 50% reimbursement of paid internship positions at local startups to support these young alumni. They are able to run their company with significant support from the college, our community, and partners like Vermont Center for Emerging Technologies and the Small Business Development Center. Our hope is that we can continue to establish connections between students while they start their projects in college and demonstrate a community of mentors that have rooted in Vermont. Last summer, we were able to open campus housing for student innovators for the first time. To our surprise, 12 of our grant recipients out of 15 opted to stay in Middlebury and use our creativity incubator space on campus. After many conversations with them about the attraction of a summer in Vermont, we decided that the small success of this Vermont Innovation Summer pilot should be a foundation from which we could launch a broader set of opportunities across Burlington's innovation ecosystem. Students will have the option to work on their companies with our summer grant funding through Vsac space, and we'll also be working in internships with companies out of VSET and the Hula Tech and Innovation Campus, at the Generator, and the Center for Women and Enterprise. We know that cohort opportunities foster a deeper sense of community and learning, and the exposure to a wide set of experiences and resources in Burlington will offer some encouragement for students to consider life in Vermont after graduation. We are working hard to combat a narrative that you need to go out of state to a major metropolitan area to find opportunities for professional growth and development. We still see this narrative from a largely out-of-state student body, perpetuated by a community-held belief in Vermont that there are very few opportunities for young people. As we tighten connections with employers and the institutions that offer funding and space for entrepreneurs, we hope to shift this mindset. We brought a bus of students to this autumn's Tech Jam and Job Expo at Hula, and the students marveled the entire ride home on the variety and scale of Vermont's tech employment opportunities. This is something that is not commonly known and is fast growing, so we need to work on exposing students more. As funding opportunities for startups grow, we need to be aware of pockets of growth and support a channel between students and employers. While I see my job as building as many exposure opportunities as possible for these students, we still have some barriers to work on. Housing is certainly a limiting factor. It is difficult for students to find sublets and options in Middlebury, let alone in Burlington, where there are solidifying internships in the spring, and many housing options are finalized for Burlington-based students months earlier. This might be another opportunity for collaboration among institutions and other stakeholders. Another important focal point, based on personal experience with other entrepreneurship programs in Vermont's higher ed landscape, is that Vermont college students should have more exposure to each other and better opportunities for collaboration. I believe in the opportunity here, not only for student-led innovation, but also for young startups and existing employers. Experience, training, and trajectories of Vermont's higher ed students represent an incredible variety of entry-level workforce talent for employers. While previous channels like LaunchVT Collegiate and Jumpstart Collegiate offered some interaction and excitement between students from all different institutions, these programs have been paused, and we could be thinking more deeply about increased interaction. Finally, one of our young alum companies was recently lured to locate in Gunnison, Colorado, by a comprehensive package of resources curated by the Colorado Economic Development Commission. Vermont has so many resources focused on early stage startups, which is a blessing, but packaging them in a more streamlined way and marketing them through higher ed programs may make Vermont an easier choice for folks that are focused on prototyping and scaling their company. I just learned about the SBDC's Community Navigator pilot, which is attempting to do this, and it looks like a phenomenal way to showcase the variety of our resources. The more we can eliminate silos and explain the overlap or differences between avenues of support, the better for expanding opportunities and attracting those deciding where to establish their roots.
Heather, do you have
Yes.
any charts or listings of all this wealth of resources for startup in Vermont that you could send us?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm happy to.
This is great. How is your innovation hub, Heather, the same as your job center? I mean, I assume you have an office of career development or whatever.
We
where people
do.
go to look at fellowships and jobs. And so is this the same place?
We are sister centers. So my colleague Peggy and I are pretty much in touch every day. Peggy is the executive director of the Center for Careers and Internships. The Innovation Hub works alongside, and so we both are in the realm of internships, but then the Innovation Hub also has a lot of skill building classes, grant funding for students. We have an incubator space on campus. So we do a lot focused on kind of undergrad experience throughout the school year and setting up summer experiences. But then our colleagues at the Center for Careers and Internships are also really Vermont focused right now. So I know that we're running out of time, but really quickly, I'll just share. There's a new program that's running out of our Careers and Internship Center that's called MidWorks for Vermont. And they've established 75 internships in Vermont that span all over different sectors. And just really quickly, Agency of Education, Maple Broadband, Let's Grow Kids, Vermont Arts Council, Agency of Ag, the UVM Health Network. And so really what we're all doing is trying to be great citizens and know that we have some demographic issues that are really coming down the pike quickly and be thinking about how to expose students to Vermont. So I can't speak a lot about the statistics. I do have some that Peggy sent along for me, but really we're starting to see with these initial efforts in the last few years that more and more students are getting excited about sticking around after graduation.
So I'm very curious. Is Middlebury College just being a good Vermont citizen? It seems like you have a focus on Vermont, even though probably very few students of yours are from Vermont. You're trying to help the Vermont economy and keep them here. I mean, is that pretty typical for most independent colleges around the country, that they try and focus on their home state and give their home state a leg up? Obviously, you have the advantage of them being here, and the businesses are right here for them to cooperate and see and do apprenticeships or training. But what drives that? You don't get much money from the state of Vermont, I can't imagine, but what drives that? Is that just good corporate citizenship, or?
The personal drive, it's a great question. The personal drive within our Innovation Hub programs is that we have the most phenomenal on-the-ground mentors that are so giving of their time and resources. And so just as, you know, in our insular innovation world, we have had people that have hosted field trips, they judge pitch competitions, they mentor individual students, they've extended their networks to the students. And so part of this Vermont Innovation Summer program, at least from my perspective, is why would we try to set things up out of state when we know that these students have access to folks all year round, and that we can send them to field trips so they get a sense of where they might be working in an internship over the summer. And so there is that pragmatic piece of it's right here. And then, yes, we are, as citizens and community members, very concerned about some of the issues we have about, you know, population and making sure that we keep talent in the state. And so between having an unbelievable network of not just alumni, but also just community members that are really excited to connect to our students, we feel like it's a great opportunity for them. But there's also that sub goal of how great is it if we can encourage students to stay here and they're building then a community that's giving back to students. And we're seeing that in real time. even with class of 21 grads that are sticking around and employing current students. So I would say there are a few reasons for it, and I can't provide statistics on independent colleges around the country, but I would say that we are really making a deliberate effort at Middlebury to be working together on kind of Vermont-based opportunities and being a good citizen.
Great. It's really exciting.
We're lucky to have a college like that here. Okay, thank you very much for being here. You're certainly welcome to stick around as we hear more on the bill from Marilyn Cargill at Vsac. Welcome, Marilyn.
Thank you.
Nice to have you and Tom. Oh, there's Tom. Okay.
Morning.
Oh, Tom, nice to see you in another capacity.
I don't know what to do with my life anymore, Senator.
Yeah. I'm worried. Now you have all that free time.
So, Representative Little, was the result any different than you thought it would be?
Well, I followed it right meeting by meeting with the Senate Reapportionment Committee. So no, there were no surprises. And I think overall it landed nicely.
Okay,
He helped to keep us out of the courts too.
good. Well, I thank you personally for what must be, at least in the initial stages, one of the most thankless jobs there could be.
Yeah, pretty thankless.
But I'm glad to hear that you stuck with it the whole way and probably provided incredible insight to two of the members of the committee right here. So
Actually, he was very restrained. Didn't you think, Randy?
I thought he handled it with great diplomacy.
So I don't know, Marilyn or Tom, whether you have any order you'd like to go in. You're on our agenda first, Marilyn. But we have 25 minutes and we're interested in the provisions in 703 that Vsac is involved with. There are quite a few, I think.
Yeah, there sure are. We don't have a summary either. Scott.
So the show is yours, Marilyn and Tom.
Thank you so much. So for the record, my name is Marilyn Cargill, and I am the Vice President of Financial Aid Services, Marketing, Research, and Public Affairs for Vsac. And I am joined today by Tom Little, who all of you know in his many capacities, including Vice President and General Counsel for Vsac. So we were originally asked if we would speak about the loan forgiveness programs that are in H703. And I'd like to talk about those, but then I would also like to talk about some of the loan repayment programs and one other section that we are interested in. So as you, I think, probably know, but I will just briefly state, the loan forgiveness programs that are in this bill and some that Vsac are already administering are programs that provide dollars to students to help them pay for their educational expenses or their training expenses. And the student in turn is signing a promissory note that is obligating them to work in Vermont for 1 year for each year that they have received those funds. If that work obligation is not met, then those funds become a collectible loan that Vsac will collect over a 10-year period from the student. So in this particular bill, there are 3 of these programs that show up. And I'm going to reference sections, but I have to be honest, I'm looking at the latest version of the bill that I have, which was from March 22nd, and I am not 100% sure that it is the latest version of the bill. So I apologize if I am a version or 2 off on this.
That's fine. We'll figure it out. We're working off the bill that's passed the House. But so it may be slightly different, but we'll find out.
Perfect. So section 13 talks about the Vermont Trade Scholarship Program. This is a $3 million program that's being envisioned to help incent students.
Hold on.
We're getting there.
It's not.
Sorry.
We're already not in alignment, so we got to find it.
So it's called what? Secondary student? No.
The Vermont Trade Scholarship Program.
Oh, yes, it is.
Okay.
section 20. Let's see, it is,
God forbid they change the name.
20. Did you say section 13?
I thought it was in my version, it is section 13.
The secondary student industry recognized credential pilot project.
it's section 14, Maryland now. Vermont Trade Scholarship Program. That's what you're talking about, right?
That's correct. That is correct.
Okay. good.
And it's on page what, 24?
24.
Okay. Right.
All right. So this particular program is designed to encourage students to go into the trades in very particular fields. It again is exactly what I described. It is offering funding to students to offset tuition, fees, and I believe licensing expenses can be covered. And in return, they are agreeing to work in that trade in Vermont for 1 year for each year that they receive the funding. Vsac is in support of this program, and if this bill were to pass with this program in place, we are situated to be able to administer that program.
So I think this is the one that we had some question on from who presented this?
CCB. Tiffany at CCB had concerns that we weren't clear enough about the cost, that the GAP, this is the GAP program?
Yeah, this is referred to as a GAP program,
Yeah,
and we were concerned with the word tuition because we thought there might be other programs that dealt with tuitions, and this was more for fees for licensure
and the credentials, the actual cost of credentials.
exam preparation, whatever. And tuition, if we were concerned that would swallow up the money, that $3 million, I think, might not be enough if it's to cover tuition, and whether there are other programs that might cover tuition, and it might be too much if it was just designed to be a GAP program for taking exams or getting license, paying the licensing fees, things like that.
Right. So the version I have still in front of me, this does cover tuition, licensing fees, and exam fees.
Right.
That's what we got. So,
Right.
what is your understanding of the intent, and are we going to be paying in this program for all the coursework?
Yeah. Want to pay for the credentialing fees, I would probably be.
So yes, I think that this program, there's a couple of things we think that this program could help with. One, so as many of you may know, we already have something called the Advancement Grant in Vermont, which is funded by the Vermont State Legislature, which is for a training program for Vermont residents.
Right.
The Advancement Grant currently has a maximum award of $7,500, but a number of the programs that we're talking about are significantly more expensive than that. And a lot of those programs, for example, under this particular program, it says that the industries they are interested in are building, mechanical, industrial, or medical trades. And then there's energy efficiency, weatherization, and clean transportation. So when you get into things like construction programs, CDL programs, lineman programs, our advancement grant does not cover tuition at all of those programs. So this certainly, when Tiffany's describing this as a gap program, I'm not sure if she's talking about the gap between what advancement currently can pay for and the cost of some of these programs, or if she's talking specifically about things that they already cover through the critical occupations programming at the Vermont State College system. So I'm not in a place to respond to Tiffany's comment, but I can tell you that Vsac sees this money as making these higher cost training programs significantly more accessible to our low and middle income Vermont families.
So I guess I would ask the obvious question, at least as to some of those programs that are funded by advancement awards, why wouldn't we just increase the money for advancement awards as opposed to creating a whole new program?
Well, this program certainly does things that the advancement grant program currently does not do. So I would say that we would be looking at, I want to make sure I've got my right program in front of me before I say this, but
Marilyn, isn't the trade scholarship more narrowly focused in terms of which trades or which training opportunities are to be funded?
it absolutely is more narrowly focused on those particular trades. It is trying to incent, so where advancement grants are about helping low and modest income families through education find careers, this one is trying to actually incent people into particular careers. So that is certainly a different focus of the program. This program also has that work obligation attached to it, which certainly is different than the advancement grant. So I think there are some fairly significant differences in the programs and the outcomes that people are looking for from this particular program.
So this would, if this is envisioned as a forgivable loan for people agree to work for a minimum of 1 year, does that mean that not Vsac, I don't know who, but someone's going to come back to the legislature next year and say we need another 3 million?
Are you asking, will we need to do this, refund this program each year?
Yes.
You know, without running it for a year to even, I'm not sure exactly what we're going to see for demand. But if this program is successful, you are correct. We would be coming back each year for an appropriation for this program.
And so as far, well, I mean, we'll ask these questions as far as you know, nobody's worked up corrections by some sort of data mechanism to determine this $3 million figure for 1 year?
I do not know. I believe the $3 million for this program came out of the governor's budget recommendation. So, yeah, Tom, do you have any idea of where the 3 million might have come from or how that might have been arrived at?
It's a nice round number. And I don't know, and we can certainly find out, I think, whether this was intended as a one-time appropriation to juice, so to speak, to juice the trades aspect of workforce development, again, one time, and see how that goes and see if that yields some tangible, quick benefits, or on the other hand, was some version of this intended to be in place for 3 years, 5 years, or permanently? I don't know.
We'll find out.
Yeah, we'll look too.
One other very significant difference in this program as it's currently structured and the advancement grant is that the very, to be eligible for this scholarship under the program, an individual, whether a resident or non-resident. So this program can go to non-residents who are agreeing to work in Vermont. So it can provide training funding outside of the state of Vermont's residents. So that is very different than the advancement grant.
Would this be the only program, Marilyn, that Vsac would be supporting non-residents?
There are a number of those in this bill. You'll see that occur in a couple of areas of this bill, but this would be the first state-run program that Vsac would be doing that would go to non-residents that I'm aware of. I don't know if we've done anything in the past, Tom, unless you do.
Yeah, but these are non-residents who commit to working here.
Right, they have to commit to working here for 1 year for each year that they receive the funding.
So, forgive my ignorance in this area, but if this is for this is potentially for non-residents who agree to work in a profession for 1 year, is there any guidelines or parameters in this language or in your mind as to, does this mean that somebody who is of limited demonstrated financial need will have their program costs entirely paid for, given that there's no other program paying for it?
So again, I haven't even tried to figure out, well, I shouldn't say I haven't even tried. We have not built a program around this yet. So we are going to be working a little bit with the Department of Labor on this, because I believe one of the parameters of this trade scholarship, I'm so sorry, I want to not be blurring my different programs because there's so many of them in here, but I believe they may be required to register. Register with the Vermont Department of Labor for the purpose of receiving relevant job referrals if unemployed. So they are also going to have to work with the Vermont Department of Labor to make sure that we are funding people that are finding work within Vermont.
So I just, we need to get a handle on the phrase enrolled in an industry recognized training and certification program. I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but you know, if is it possible that a recognized training and certification program could be a 2 or 3 year college program, and now we're basically providing tuition for the entire scholastic for people of low means?
Well,
Yes, I think there is a possibility that it could be at a traditional college and university. If that is considered an industry recognized training program, and I'm assuming it would be, I'm assuming a VTC would be.
it has to be. I believe that's one of the parameters, is that it has to be industry recognized.
Correct, that is correct.
So do we do that? Do we have free college for low income people in Vermont through Vsac now in some degree?
So yes, so there's a couple of different things that are happening right now. So the critical occupation scholarships that the Vermont State Colleges are administering provides free tuition to students who are enrolled in certain majors. And then 802 Opportunity, which was funded by the legislature last year, also provides, and that's administered by Vsac, also provides free tuition at the Community College of Vermont for any family making less than $50,000 a year in adjusted gross income.
So I seem to find myself asking this question of every witness. Is there a place where we could see all the free tuition programs, like in a list or a graph or something, and that Vermont has established at this point? Or help with these certification or college programs so we can get some.
I think that's absolutely doable. Let me work with the Vermont State Colleges on that and see what I can get for you.
That would be great. Just while we're on this subject, you know, one of the concerns I have is it says the corporation, which I assume is you, shall give priority to applicants who have not received other assistance. I think that's sort of odd because
It's a gap filling program.
it's a gap program. So I mean, if they've received other assistance to pay for the tuition, we would want to pay for the gap piece. I don't know why we would preclude people who've have very low income but are highly motivated. I don't get why you would exclude people who've received other assistance. That's precisely the crowd that needs the help. I don't get that.
Yeah, some of this language is, this language is not necessarily coming from Vsac, so I can't tell you what the thought process was behind that statement.
Okay, I just,
Keep in mind that depending upon where you are in H703, in some places, the term the corporation refers to Vsac, and in other places it refers to the Vermont State Colleges.
That's great.
Yeah.
well, thanks for confusing us further.
Well,
No,
I think it refers to you here because you are referred to as the Vermont Student Assistance Corporation, and then you're referred to thereafter as the corporation.
in the Vermont State Colleges chapter of Title 16, the Vermont State Colleges is typically in that chapter referred to as the corporation, because it is a corporation.
Got it. Well, we will check, but I think in this instance, it's referring to you, which makes it that section 2 of C2 very concerning for me. Because to me, this is exactly the kind of crowd that may get money for tuition, but then don't have the gap money to finish the credentialing piece, which is what I think this is about.
So, Marilyn, thank you. This is, you're in terms of trying to find the origin of this $3 million figure, which I think may have been the governor's ask. I don't know if the House changed it or not. We would go to the Department of Labor to say how they came up with that.
No.
Other than it's a round number, like.
Yeah, I don't think that came from the Department of, well, you know what, let me talk to Scott Giles and see if he knows what the source of this $3 million was. I don't, and Tom doesn't, but Scott may. So let me, if you would not mind, he is unfortunately out of state right now, but I will reach out to him and see if we can figure out if we actually know at Vsac, even though I don't.
Okay. Listen, let's confine our next 2 minutes to any more comments on this one section, and we'll have you back next week if we can to talk about other sections.
The other 2 sections, you said there were 3 sections, Marilyn.
And then there were other things you wanted to talk about.
There are 3 loan forgiveness programs in this bill. The next one, which again, I'm going to guess maybe it's section 24, but it was section 23 for me, is the Vermont Nursing Forgivable Loan Incentive Program. That program's already up and running, and this is just funding that program.
That's section 23 to 25.
Perfect.
The existing, yes, we're clear it's an existing nurse scholarship program.
Correct. So that one's up and running and has been around in various forms for a while now. And in 20, you made this program the version that we are currently administering.
Right. So Marilyn, I hate to ask, given that we have such a nursing shortage, why isn't this program more successful?
Why?
Yeah, how many, I guess we should ask how many people are enrolled in this program at the moment, and why isn't it being attracting more people to it? I mean, why?
Sure. Sure. So a couple of things to answer that, and then certainly Vsac is happy to come back next week and talk further about this bill. So originally, just to go back a little bit in history, originally this program had $50,000 in it for a 19-year stand. And we were awarding a small number of students every year. And what we found with that group, it had the same workforce requirement, the same work obligation requirement. 86% of nurses met their obligation with work in the state of Vermont. So the program itself has actually been very successful as far as incenting these students to work in Vermont. This program was funded with just over $1 million and slightly changed parameters in the fall of 20, and it was awarded for the very first time for the spring of 21. That year we awarded 66 students, and I think the only reason it was that small at that point was because there were there's only a few weeks between the time the program became available and the time the courses started. For the 21-22 school year, there are about 100 students, 100 nursing students that are enrolled under this program. And the way the program is currently structured needs my apologies. This program needs to be rewritten. Oh my goodness. What on earth is happening?
Are you okay?
Yes, every phone I have on is going off. I don't know, but I'm not going to worry about it right now.
What did you
Maybe-
say?
If it may be a good time to stop, we'll get you.
I think the
Could be
Senator
everyone telling me to stop talking.
Senator Clarkson, I think the program has been very successful, but it was funded at $50,000 a year for forever and ever. And as we're ramping it up to a more robust
Right,
financing, the first year it happened on the fly. And now I think we're learning more about it, and it probably needs to be tweaked.
okay, and it needs to be rewritten, got it.
Right. So I think the funding for this program and the program itself is actually going to be very successful for Vermont. I'm not concerned about that at this point. We're seeing increased enrollment in it each year. And as Tom said, we can either spend a little more time now, or I can come back next week and talk about some of the tweaks that we're recommending to the nursing program.
Okay, great. Let's do that next week. I mean, given our time.
I think that is absolutely fine. Whatever works for you.
Is that okay? Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.